Welcome, everyone, to the first episode of the Rare and Real podcast series, where we will hear real stories about patients living with rare respiratory diseases. Today's guest is living with a rare mutation of cystic fibrosis. I'm pleased to be joined with Skylar Davis. She's an amazing young woman, accomplished athlete, and college graduate. Skylar, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Can you share with our audience today a little bit about what it was like growing up with cystic fibrosis and the rare mutation that you have, even among CF patients, that makes you ineligible for modulator therapy?
Yes, so I am Skylar Davis. I'm 23 years old and I have cystic fibrosis. I was born with a rare mutation, two actually, not just one. So that makes me part of the 10% of the population of people living with CF who do not qualify for life saving modulators right now. For me growing up, I grew up centered around my health. Everything was about CF while still being able to balance what I wanted to do with my life and how I wanted to grow up. And so for me, being an athlete was a really, really, really big part of that. And it was something that kept me going for as long as I could possibly go for. And in this past May of 2024, I graduated from college. I graduated with a double major in counseling and human services and psychology, as well as a double minor in social justice and studio art. I played lacrosse in college and I also was a cheerleader. So those two things played a really, really big role in getting me through college and keeping me healthy, and kind of preparing for this stage of my life.
Well, today it's a pleasure to have you on our first of many rare and real interview series. We'd like to highlight many of your challenges in your journey, but also some of the accomplishments and achievements like graduating college that you already mentioned. To start, can you talk about the current treatment options available for CF and how those do or do not apply to your specific mutation?
Yes. So I think the first blanket statement that should be made is treatments look really different for everybody with cystic fibrosis, especially now that modulators have really entered the conversation. And for other people who don't have rare mutations who are on modulators, they're seeing a new type of lifestyle, one that doesn't
Hmm.
require them to focus on, hours of day spent with treatments or pills or IV therapies. They're seeing a lifestyle more regulated to what we might call a normal person, while still having some of those like normal treatment needs here and there for someone with CF. For me, I've not ever gotten to experience that. So treatments are a really, really big part of my life. I currently, and I'm going to divide this into when I'm healthy and when I'm sick, because really I'm never healthy, but I am currently averaging a 52% lung function. So I'm operating at the level of a 60, 70-year old. Some are healthier than me right now. Um, so when I'm hitting that 52% lung function or my healthy phase, I'm roughly taking 45 pills a day. I got to take enzymes in order for me to eat because I don't have a working pancreas. That's something about cystic fibrosis most people don't know is they think it's just a lung disease, but it's not. Most people are pancreatic insufficient when they're diagnosed with CF, meaning we don't digest, we don't absorb, and so that leads us to having bowel blockages or obstructions, and it's something we have to pay a lot of attention to. So anytime we're intaking calories of any kind, any food, you have to take enzymes. So I take quite a bit of those in a day. I love to eat. And that doesn't include the pills that I take day to day, vitamins, specific vitamins for people with CF because we don't absorb our minerals. So, lots of different things like vitamin D, extra vitamin B, lots of different stuff to help the body keep regulating. And then I take other supplemental things like omeprazole, helps aid in the digestion process for us. Things like Zyrtec because I also have sinusitis. Mucus doesn't just clog up the lungs, it also clogs the sinuses. And then obviously that shifts when I'm sick. That pill intake goes up, especially if I'm on oral antibiotics. Then that shifts from 45 pills a day to about 50 to 52. And again, that plays, into the circumstance of the day. Aside from pills, treatments take up a lot of my time when I am quote unquote healthy. I spend 4.5 hours a day on treatments. Four and a half
Wow.
hours.
4.5 hours. Like, what time do you have to wake up in the morning to, make it to class on time?
Um, well, when I was in college, we used to have like a 6 a.m. lacrosse practice, for example. So for me, that would require me to wake up around 4:30, and that was generous, to make sure I could be at the field and be functioning like everybody else, just for a 6 a.m. practice
Right.
because it takes an hour of treatments and, there's time that you have to recover after that. This is not something that I do and then okay, check it off my list and go about my day.
Right.
It
Yeah.
affects me for hours after.
By treatment, this is not, a massage before practice. Why don't you take the audience through what a treatment regimen looks like for you specifically in at 4 a.m. in the morning?
Yeah, so I wake up, I have an inhaler that I'm required to do 15 minutes prior to starting any type of nebulizer. So I immediately do that when I wake up. That's when I tend to go ahead and take some of my pills, things like omeprazole and Zyrtec, because, as soon as my body hits the ground, it is not functioning very good. So I start some of those pills. I go ahead and set up all my nebulizers. So in the morning, that looks like hypertonic saline, which is just a salty solution, helps clear the mucus in the lungs. And then um, I do a vest, which I'm sure is like the most well known type of treatment form. It is a literal chest vest that goes over your chest, zips up, and it shakes at a vibration and a frequency that helps release the mucus from the walls of your lungs. So it's easier to cough up and cough out because our motto is people with CF or other respiratory diseases is better out than in. So your goal is to produce as much mucus as possible to get it out. So I do the vest for about 45 minutes. When I was younger, it was like 10, but that doesn't do anything for me now. So I've had to increase the time so that I'm more productive with my coughing and my treatments. After the vest, I usually have another nebulizer that I have to do, which is dependent upon what antibiotic I'm on. So antibiotics aren't just pills, they aren't just IVs, right? You can get them in nebulized forms so that they're directly hitting the lining of your lungs. So for me, I'm on a rotation between tobramycin inhaled nebulizer and Caistin inhaled, which I would say they're popular in the CF world, but I'm learning that they're actually a little bit more rare of a treatment to use, a little bit more intense on the body, but it's really the only thing that I have right now that can target the bacterias that are in my lungs currently. So, from start to finish in the morning, it looks like about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. And like I said, that does not include when I am coughing and recovering after, because my body and my lungs are still working through basically a workout that I just did to try and move that mucus.
Right.
While when I'm sick, that looks a little different, right? It shifts from 4.5 hours a day to 8.5 hours a day, which is crazy to think about because, on average in a day, there is 720 minutes of daylight. I spend 510 of those minutes
Right.
doing treatments when I'm sick. And that's like a huge thing to think about, right? Like that only leaves a short amount of daylight for me to go and be a person. And that is just because I have to be on IV antibiotics. And that is a process. That is a full-time job. It is like having um, to take care of yourself as a normal person and then also having to take care of something that is completely and utterly absorbent of your time And IV antibiotics are something that are very cut and dry and scheduled. And in order for you to get the most out of them, you need to do them accurately every day. There's no room for skipping. There's no room for, I don't feel like doing that today. You have to. And, you run the risk of hurting yourself if you don't stay on that type of strict regimen.
Skylar, before we wrap up the first segment of our interview, I'd love for you to share what advice you would have specifically to pharmaceutical companies who are developing innovative treatments for CF.
Yeah, I would have a lot to say to them. While the work that they're doing is so, so, so important and so respectable, I would want them to know that we need to do better. These treatments are not realistic and accessible for people like me. There's a lot of behind the scenes that people don't know and don't talk about regarding disability and income and insurance. And those play a huge role in what is accessible to these patients, to people like me. And I think we've gotten lost in the concept of modulators for people with CF. That's a huge thing that, I might not have a popular opinion about. I I need more. You're leaving people like me behind. You're leaving the 10% of us behind. We don't have answers. We don't have medications that are attacking our CF at a cellular level. We don't get that. So you're forgetting about people like me. And sometimes, in order for something to happen, you need to be the one to talk about it. You need to be the one to stand up and say, I'm not okay with this because it affects me. This is personal. And so to them, I would say, hey, this is personal. You're forgetting about me. And I want to see something happen where there's an honest conversation happening around, what are you doing for the 10% of people? Because you recognize us. You're pointing us out. You're calling us out. You're saying, we have work to do. We have work to do. But you're forgetting about me. You're not creating medications that are targeting things like Pseudomonas, other different bacterias that are harming us more than just needing to cure CF. We need to take steps to create medication that targets the problems that are causing these CF lung infections. So to them, I would say, let's have a conversation, let's be honest, and please don't forget about me.
Well, you heard it from Skylar. Access and the feeling of not being left behind. Truly, there is more work to be done. Vast Therapeutics is definitely engaged and not wanting to leave you and the rest of the 10% behind. This is just the beginning of our conversation today. If you want to hear the full discussion with Skylar Davis, visit our YouTube page, Vast Therapeutics, where we post more of this deep dive and emotional, raw, and real story with Skylar. If you're not already following Vast, on the social media channels, please do so on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn. And if you want to learn more about what the company is doing and the exciting developments, visit vasttherapeutics.com.